Hey everyone, it's a beautiful, kind of rainy, dark day here in New England, and it felt appropriate to talk a little bit today about what has drawn me to tarot, caused me to connect to it really powerfully, and what keeps inspiring me about the tarot as well. So I think I was, I don't know, some people would say chose to come into a matrilineal line or just ended up in a matrilineal line, of artists and often tortured badly. My grandmother on my mother's side was a writer and a poet, and my mother is actually quite a gifted artist. And so before my parents joined the cult that I was raised in, my mother was actually a working artist, a sculptor, and she specialized in oil painting. And some of my earliest memories prior to the religion that we grew up in was of being in her studio. And so before my mom would start a work, whether it was commissioned or a piece that she was doing because she was feeling particularly inspired in her spare time, she would cover the walls of her studio with whatever was inspiring her, whether that was other artists' work or photography or poetry or stories that were really kind of pushing her to creatively complete whatever the given project was she was working on. And she was extremely, and still is, I am sure, extremely gifted in regards to her ability to create what was in her mind. She's an incredibly gifted artist. And in fact, I do have some of her sketches from college. She went to Rhode Island School of Design, and these are some of her sketches from college. She was a really gifted artist. And anyhow, so some of my first memories are of looking at the walls covered in, as you can see, I also carried that on, covered in whatever was inspiring her or calling to her or speaking to her. And music was also an important way into her creative process for her as well. And so those are some of my earliest memories before we joined the religion. And my mother gave up her gift for God. And I think one of the most profound effects for me was watching someone who is so talented not practice their craft and seeing how that kind of decimated and crippled them. So by the time I came to tarot, I had this understanding, but also was very well versed in art and art history because of my childhood. One of the things that I was allowed to do as a child was read, and art from my childhood and from my matrilineal line was something that really spoke to me. And I love to read, and I've written poetry since I was very young. And so reading books on various artists was kind of a way to survive the childhood that I was experiencing. And so I was very, very well versed in art and art history and symbolism in paintings. Growing up, there would always be all these reasons why I couldn't look at certain things because of the symbolism in it that my mother would pull out and be like, nope, this symbolism's not in alignment with God. And so, you're not allowed to look at that artwork or to have that book in the house or whatever it was. So that was very much impacted. It was very much pounded into me as a child, the importance of symbolism. And so over the last few days, I've been thinking about, what I wanted to do for the next video on the channel, and thinking about how when the first time I looked at tarot, I very comprehensively had an understanding of the structure of the deck as a whole. And so studying I did was in addition to this kind of understanding that I felt immediately. And I do think it was because of those roots in childhood and in my matrilineal line of creativity, of artistry, and of a need to express outside of oneself the inner conflict and inner experience. So I think for me on my spiritual path, this is why tarot personally resonated so much, because not only is it artwork, it's symbolism and myth. And many of you know, if you've been with me on the channel for a long time, that myth is something that has always fascinated me, will always fascinate me, and that I will always love studying about. So these things kind of created like the perfect storm for me to connect with tarot in the way that I did. And add to that a very strict Christian upbringing after the age of 5, and you also will have an understanding for traditional divinatory meanings when they show up in paintings as well, or in the structure of tarot as well. So those things really created this situation that allowed me to have a deep and intrinsic connection to the structure of tarot as soon as I looked at it for the first time. Now, of course, also I was raised, believing that the tarot was something from Satan the devil, and was something that was wrong, and that, you shouldn't look at, let alone even play with or think to touch or connect with it. And so there was also that aspect of mysticism and occultism that went just right smack in the face of my upbringing, that also delighted my little Taurus heart. And but also, like, I felt the profoundness of working with a tool like this that had such a history, much like I felt that I had personally been damned by the religion I grew up in as well, just like tarot has been over the years, by people who are afraid of it and demonize it in order to feel safe. So yeah, those are some reflections of my own as to like why I was set up just right to connect as powerfully with the tarot as I did. And then what I found when I started working with it, and this is why I have a lifelong love for the tarot, and why 10 years in we're still doing videos on YouTube about this together, is that the images and the beautiful various artistic expressions that artists have made over the years in regards to tarot itself, all the different decks we have to look at and to work with and connect with, provide us with like endless learning, and in regards to our spiritual paths, our life's purpose, our higher calling, and coming to understand ourselves. And I think the tarot really beautifully allows for us to let that story change and shift. I think when I was in my 20s, I really felt like you kind of like were yourself, and that was it. And it was just about like finding who I was so that I could know that. But now, as I approach my late 30s, because I'm going to be 37 next week, I am coming to understand that shifts and changes and flows who we are, and that the tarot really beautifully allows for that shift and change, and a sense of empowerment in knowing when you can be present to the shift and the change. I think that's something that is really beautiful, to be able to be aware and present to your own metamorphosis and transmutation is mind-blowing. And it also allows you to not need to be attached to times of great trauma or drama, to not be attached to those things as being the end-all be-all, but to be able to understand, that they are providing the impetus for us to shift and grow and to change. And I'm really thankful and grateful that the tarot as a structure has shown me that. It's given me a map for being able to understand that within myself, hopefully on my best days, to be able to offer myself that grace and presence, but also when working with others, to really be able to hold a space for seeing the big picture and not just the finite moment, but to be able to like pan out look at that big picture and engage with all the moving parts with an understanding that whatever is happening is serving that evolution and growth of the soul. And I think tarot gives us that gift. It serves as a key to helping us to see our own structures, other structures, and how they all interlock and interweave, and what that big picture is on the journey. And, I'm preparing to offer a workshop on Hecate soon, and so I've been sitting a lot with skeleton keys. And because I have a real affinity for skeleton keys. I grew up in a very, very, very old house that was built in the late 1700s. And there were skeleton keys hidden everywhere, and skeleton key openings in all of the doors. And there's something about the shape of a skeleton key that really, really fascinates me, and that I feel is a large part of connecting in with Hecate, is accessing those keys. So I've been thinking about keys a lot. And I do think that the tarot is one of those keys that we can, whether we connect with Hecate or not, but wherever we are, whoever we are on our journey at any given time, working with those keys, such as a tool like the tarot or an oracle deck, can really help us to understand, again, where we are and who we are in any given moment, what we may be evolving into, and also what we are going to choose to believe, because we do have the power to believe and whatever we want. And I think for me, in having experienced such contrast in my childhood of, that there was only one truth in religion, and everybody else was not following this one truth, and they were not going to be okay, but the people who followed the one truth would be, right? And then understanding as I was becoming a teenager that there is actually no one truth, even though that's what I was being told. Everyone believes their own personal truth. And once you can see that you have to be in alignment with your own personal truth, but it is not the one truth, that's a real key, and that's a huge amount of freedom. And so then you're really free to believe whatever you want, because you know that it's not the only truth. There's room for growth within it. And you have freedom on your path to believe whatever you want to. And I think that the tarot serves as a really beautiful key to helping us to understand what we believe, while not handing us dogma, instructing us on what we must believe. So that is something that's kind of perpetually yummy to me, and an empowering tool that is my lifelong passion to share with others and to help them access within themselves. So, I've been thinking about a lot lately about tarot as I kind of examine the structure, and also mentoring a lot more over the last few years as I kind of share with others my associations with specific cards and putting those things into words. It does make you go back to the beginning and to think about, how did I get started on this path, and where has it led me? And it's led me to the career of my dreams, for the most part, a life of my dreams, just myriad blessings, and authentic connection with others, as well as being able to share and hold space and to accomplish my work as a priestess, which, for me, I really do feel like is why I came here at this time, that this work needed to be done. So, those are some of my thoughts on tarot. It's such a beautiful tool, and it can mean whatever it means to each and every one of us. And I love that about tarot as well. Again, to go back to that no one truth thing, my experience of the tarot and what's drawn me to it is different than yours, and yet both are equally as important, necessary, and awesome, as awesome of a story in regards to tarot, or as important and valid as a reason. Each differing reason that's drawn each and every one of us to tarot is as valid and important as the next. And I love that as well. But primarily, the artwork is a big deal, and what a gift that we have so many beautiful decks to connect with too, and can really find something that speaks to our own aesthetic and way of choosing to see the world. Each of us has our own unique lens, and it's really fun when we find a deck that lines right up with that, right? So, those are some Wednesday ruminations on the tarot for you all. I am sending you, as always, so much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video.